everyone. My name is Dr. Hal Bradley. I would like to ask each and every one of you that if you enjoyed these shows, please hit like, share, and subscribe after you view the show. Thank you very much. Well, hello, world, and welcome to another episode of the Crisis Victory Show. Tonight, I've got Brother Nick online with us here. Nick and I did an interview not too long ago, so this is kind of cool. It's like a follow-up and a continuance of our stories. And hey, Nick, how you doing, buddy?
Good, my man. Good, great being here.
Yeah, it's good to see you too, brother. Everything going good back there?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, just heard you got out of the gym. I'm impressed. I got to give it to you. Like I said, I was out feeding the fucking chickens and you're in the gym pumping iron. I am impressed.
Well, I try to go. I go like 4 days a week. My girlfriend kind of pushes me, and she's a certified trainer. So,
wow.
You know.
Yeah, that's a advantage. Now, as I recall, last time that we were talking together, we kind of cut off. We only had about an hour on that interview, and we didn't get to go into the second phase of our stories. So if we could, for the purpose of the audience, can you give a brief bio of your background? And then I'll do the same, and then we can get into our conversation.
Okay, sure. Well, I don't have an exciting background like Hal does, but I mean, I grew up in Manhattan, in New York, in Queens, near Howard Beach, the Rockaways, that is. And I got involved in writing at a very young age, and it was because of a book I read, and it was a book called The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton.
I'm familiar with that book.
I'm sorry?
I'm familiar with that book.
Yeah, it's a great book. And
great book.
Yeah, and at that time, I was around 12, 13 years old. And when I was in elementary school, I was getting my ass kicked every day. I was, back then, bullying, nobody understood that. So I was bullied every single day, beat up every day after school. And then when I got into junior high school, I joined a gang. The guy that was the leader of the gang was Greek like me. And we became friends, and then eventually I got involved. And the first thing I needed to do to get back to the Outsiders in a moment, the reason why I'm saying this is when I wanted to get involved with the gang, see, back in those days, it was a little different than it is now, obviously. I had to do something to get initiated. So what I did was I decided to shoplift something. So I shoplifted a Penthouse magazine because I thought the guys thought that'd be pretty cool. And back in those days, we had what we called the 5 and 10, which is not what the CVS is nowadays.
Yeah, exactly.
And I walked into the store, and back then, they didn't have cameras and stuff. And I thought I could get away with it. So I shoved it down. It was like in the summertime. So I shoved it down my front of my shorts and my pants. And I pulled my shirt over, and I'm walking out the store thinking I'm going to get away with this, right?
Yeah.
So as I'm walking out, the cop stops me. And he says, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going home." He says, "No, you're not." He said, "What do you mean?" He says, lift your shirt up." I said, "What? What are you, gay? I'm not lifting my shirt up." And he goes, "Lift your shirt up." See, back in those days, we respected the cops. We didn't get in their face.
Absolutely.
So I said, "Okay." So we pulled out the Penthouse magazine and said, "How'd this get here?" "Oh, shoot, I don't know." So he started laughing. He's like, "Listen, I need your phone number, your address, and your father's name. Write it all down." I said, "Oh, boy." So I did what he said. And then he said, "Okay, I want you to go home, and I'm going to call your house. Make sure you went home." I'm like, "All right, great." 5 and 10 wasn't far from my house. I freaking flew. I never ran so fast. I'm not a runner.
Yeah. I
got home as quick as I can, and in my room happened to be a phone. And when the phone rang, I picked it up as quick as possible so nobody else gets it. And I disguised my voice. And the officer said, "Hello, is this Mr. Christopher's?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is Mr. Christopher's." And he said to me this and that. He gave me the whole line. And I said, "Oh, okay, thank you very much, officer." Click. To this day, my father didn't even know that it even happened.
That's so funny. Go ahead.
That's how I kind of got initiated in the crew. And back then, gangs, all we did was fight other gangs and stuff like that. We fought Puerto Ricans, we fought blacks, we fought jocks in the school, the football kids. We fought everybody and anybody. Around that same time, my father had a cafe, and a lot of wise guys used to come into the cafe. This is where my fascination with the mob came in.
Sure.
We had guys like Vic Arena from the Colombo family who became acting boss, who was friends of mine. I knew the whole family. I hung out with the whole sons. John Booby Sassani, who was with Sonny Black's crew, the Donnie Brasco movie. He was in Sonny's crew. He used to come here all the time. I used to hang out with him, talk to him. I actually went to Atlantic City with him. At that time, he was driving a white Lexus, and that's the car we took to AT. We had other guys come in, like Angelo Ruggiero, who was John Gotti's guy.
Oh, yeah.
I never spoke to him. He just came in the store because his house was actually in the Five Towns area where my dad's cafe was. And I didn't speak to him. He just came in, grabbed his coffee, and he ran. We had other guys come in, some low-level guys. We had a Jewish gangster who used to come in there, and this guy Steve Adams and his son. We had some other guys, Nicky Masson, used to come there and sit by my father's area all the time and bullshit about betting horses. There was another guy, Sally, who used to come. He was a bookie. And I was around, again, 12, 13 years old. And I'm watching these guys this guy Sally coming to the store, walking to the back of the office where my father and my uncle used to do the bookkeeping.
Yeah.
And he came to the store every Saturday. And I couldn't understand why. I said, what are you doing? So then I got curious, and I'm watching him, and I'm seeing him giving my dad like an envelope. And in the envelope was these like football sheets that guys used to bet back in the day.
Yeah.
These long green sheets. And I said, what the hell is that? So I took one day and I realized what it was.
Yeah.
So I said, smart me. I went and took one of them. He used to come in every Tuesday to get the bets. And every Saturday Saturday he'd drop them off. And Tuesday he would settle up. Whoever won, whoever lost, whatever. So I took one of the sheets that he brought every week. And I used to go to the library and make copies of it.
Wow.
And I used to go to the school. I was in junior high school then into high school. I used to have all the kids bet with me.
So you were running numbers in high school or junior
Correct.
high. I love
Right.
it. It's too funny.
But nobody really knew. Sal didn't know, that's for sure. So my father found out because he found like the football sheets in my drawer. And he says, what are these doing here? He's like, and it wasn't like it was one. He was like, okay, you're betting, that's fine. But he got a bunch of them. He's like, what are you doing with all these? He said, listen, if you're doing anything on the side, and Sally finds out, I don't know what he's going to do. Because, in other words, you're making money that's not getting kicked up to nobody.
Yeah, exactly.
If anybody finds out that you're running this thing on the side, this ain't going to be pretty. You better stop what you're doing.
And you're what, 13 years old, right?
13, 14, yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, all right, Dad, fine, all right. So I had to stop. I got the press. I was making like $500 a week doing nothing. It was like a joke.
Yeah.
But that's when, around 13, 14, is when I read The Outsiders. And I felt connected to the character, Pony Boy.
Yeah.
I just sort of like mirrored kind of me because he was creative, he was artistic, yet he was, pulled into this gang that he probably would have rather not even been part of. And it's kind of like, I felt like it mirrored my life in some degree. And that's when my love of writing started to really begin. And I started writing stuff about that life, because I was around it a lot and I knew a lot of guys. Went to all, and it wasn't just the Italian guys. I knew the Greeks. I used to go to Astoria, Queens in New York, where all the nightclubs are owned by Greek wise guys.
Nice. And
the boss of the Greeks, I knew well. I know his whole family. He actually died in prison last year. He was doing life. He got pinched in 92 for a crime he didn't commit, no less. So,
funny how that goes, isn't it? If you're in that world, brother, anything can happen, as we both know. Sometimes
But here's the one thing. As much as I respect law enforcement,
yes,
I think what they did to him and my other friend Nikki too. They both were serving. Nikki's still alive, but him and Spiro were serving time for something they didn't commit. I'm not saying they're angels. They did what they did. But like Spiro, for example, he was pinched at first for gambling, which he would have done, what, 5 years? Maybe 3 years on, get out on probation or whatever.
yeah,
So they tacked on murder because this guy, Sammy, the Arab, was muscling in on his gambling debts. And Spiro was under the flag of the Lucchese family. Typically, mob protocol is when you're under somebody's flag, you can ask for help because you're paying them.
was he
you're
made?
kicking up.
Was he made? Was he a made man, or was he just a
No,
civilian?
he was an associate. He was an associate of the Lucchese family because he was part of the Greek, so-called Greek mob. It wasn't really a Greek mob, but it was a Greek organization, but it wasn't a mob like the Italians have.
Yeah.
But he was under their wing. So typical protocols, when you have a problem, you go to your superior and you tell them, hey, look, I got an issue. Can you take care of this? And, at first they said no, because this is your problem. If this guy's not connected to anybody, do what you got to do.
Yeah.
But Spiro insisted. So then Picciotto, who's a captain, under Vicar Musso and Gaspar Castro of the Lucchese's, said, oh, I'll take care of this. Because Picciotto was who Spiro was kicking up to.
Yeah.
So Picciotto said, I'll take care of this. Now, Spiro never told him to go kill the guy. He just said, I got a problem. He'll talk to him and straighten it out. That's it. Peter took it upon himself to have the guy whacked. And when he got whacked, of course, the authorities, because he got whacked in Spiro's travel agency, Picciotto went ahead and testified, became a government witness, and testified against Spiro, saying he gave the contract, which is not true.
Wow. Yeah,
so he went away. I'm sorry?
No, I was going to say, I did federal time, and I was in the UC Med Center in Springfield, Missouri, with Mr. Johnny Gambino. And I was there at the same time that his boss, John Gotti, came into the prison. He had throat cancer, neck cancer, all kinds of shit going on. And I was a hospice counselor taking fellow inmates through the dying process. So I actually had access to John Gotti at that time. And I remember transporting messages back and forth between the two of them. But Mr. Gambino was an amazing man. And he was in there. And of course, he was protected even in there by guys that were in the business connected to his family. Where he was celled up, man, there was always somebody at the door. If you wanted to talk to Mr. Gambino, you knocked at that door, you paid respect, and you either got in or you didn't. So I understand the chain of command and the protocol that you're sharing with the audience. It's a pretty serious thing, and it warrants that type of recognition. So when you're talking about someone like in the Greek organization having that kind of a relationship with Mr. Lucchese and the Lucchese organization, that's extremely powerful to be connected to something like that. But there's a price to pay for all that. And like you said, complicity on a murder that he didn't even commit or order, but he still got caught up in it. And a lot of that is effectual to passing the buck to someone else that saves someone else. Am I right or not?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like I said before, I as much as I love law enforcement, I respect them.
Yeah,
but I think it was wrong that the FBI went far and beyond to put Spiro away and take the word of a rat that, because there was nothing to sustain this murder charge. There was no witnesses. There was no recording device. There was nothing to corroborate except this guy's word. So as far as I remember, hearsay does not doesn't solidify a murder charge, let alone life.
I agree with you, brother. What timing, what era was this that happened?
1992.
92. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I'm not surprised. You know, if they've got a target on a guy's back and they can figure out a way to smear him up and get him in there, they're going to do it. And back in those years, they did. It's a little bit different now, Nick, because now they've got too many other people that are involved in those type of elements of developing cases to where you can't have a crooked cop play like we had crooked cops in the 70s and 80s and 90s when I was in the cartels and when I was trying, high level trafficking and all that. Hell, I had a lieutenant in the narcotics division, Seattle PD, on my payroll for almost 2 years. And I mean, not every cop is a good guy, but like you, I have nothing but respect for law enforcement. They're doing their job, and our job is to not get caught. And that's the name. That's the name of that game, brother. That's it.
Pretty much. But like I said, like it's just if they want somebody bad enough,
Yeah,
they'll,
that was
that's
my
the bottom
point.
line.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, like Nicky, my friend Nicky, who was a Philly guy, good friend of mine. He's doing life. He was part of the John Stamford's crew in Philadelphia.
Wow.
His crew was like against Skinny Merlino, against Skinny Merlino, Joey. So he grew up around that crew. And Nicky's story is even crazier than Spiro's. And it is. Nicky was out with three guys for the evening. One guy was supposed to get hit that night. So they went out and they went to a nightclub. They were all hanging out and having drinks. Two guys went through the front entrance, Nicky and this other guy, and two other guys went through the back entrance. Two guys that went through the back entrance were unfortunately carrying a piece. So when these guys going in there, Blondie, I'll call him Blondie, he was on the dance floor talking to some drug dealer that owed him money. His name was Tad Green. And a little argument ensued. And Blondie took out a gun and shot him. And shot him out of the dance floor.
Shit happens.
Yeah. So, of course, pandemonium, people running everywhere.
Yeah.
And when Blondie was running out, he saw Nicky. He gave Nicky his gun, only because he was his superior. That's again, mob protocol. So as they're running out of the club, Nicky ditches the piece. The cops come, witnesses give testimony. They had three different summations of that night, and they picked up Nicky, of course, because the cops recognized him. They pointed, whatever.
Sure.
And the summations that they had from witnesses described the shooter as 6 foot tall, blonde hair, wearing a Yankee bomber jacket. Now, Nicky is my height, 5'6", 5'7", 5'8", with dark brown hair. Not even close. Then, Nicky, of course, got prosecuted for the murder of Tad Green. Now, Tad Green, mind you, when he was shot, he was taken to the hospital. He wasn't dead yet. He died in the hospital. But the authorities never even asked him, who shot you? Nobody interviewed him. Nobody asked. The witnesses with the descriptions were never brought to trial. The witnesses never showed up.
Did he plea? Did he take a plea, or how did that go? How did they get him?
Well, they got him because his fingerprints were on the gun. Because of course, remember, he took it and threw it.
Yeah. That's a lot right there, brother.
Well, it's more interesting than that. Blondie, who I described earlier, who shot Tad Green.
Yeah.
Because I did an investigation on this. I dug into it because I wanted to help Nicky to get some information. I found out that Blondie is an FBI informant.
Oh my God.
He's a CI.
Yeah.
So of course they're not going to pinch the real shooter. They're going to pinch somebody else.
Yeah.
So Nicky was doing life for a murder. He had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. That's sad. It just is. I mean, I get it that he was in the game and all of that stuff, but it's got to be awful hard to live with yourself when you're sitting in a cell block every damn night and you're doing time for something you didn't do. But because of the stigma of who you are, no one's really going to take a look at that. What about appeals and things like this? Did he pursue any of that?
He did pursue, but every time he tried it, it was knocked down. And I know why. Like I wrote about his case.
Oh, good.
And I wrote about 2 or 3 articles. And one of my articles, I never mentioned Blondie's real name. I know who he is, but I don't mention the real name. After I wrote an article and it appeared in the news, online, I got a phone call. This guy it looked like it was a Philadelphia number. And I thought maybe it was Nicky or somebody from his family calling me or whatever.
Yeah.
And this guy on the phone calls me and he tells me, you're Nick Christophers, right? You wrote that article about Nicky Slick. I'm like, yeah. I said, who's it? And he goes, you know what? I was a good friend with Nicky. I knew him a long time, and my mother saw the article and she was very upset and she was crying. I said, why was she crying? What are you talking about? I never mentioned anybody's name. Then a light bulb went in my head. I said, holy shit, the shooter's calling me.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking as you were unloading that right there. Is going, yeah, that guy's checking you, pal.
So I think he got nervous because I exposed the truth.
Yeah, of course.
More than once. And I think he just got nervous. Like, the FBI doesn't want anybody to know that they're covering for this guy and letting him do whatever he wants. Yeah. It's similar to like a Whitey Bulger story almost.
Yeah, exactly. Jesus. So is your friend still alive? Is he still in the system? What's going on?
Yeah. Nicky's still, he's still in prison, and he's not in Allenwood. He was in Allenwood, but I visited him in Allenwood, and he was in Hazleton for a little while, but he got moved again to another facility in Philadelphia. I mean, in Pennsylvania, but I can't remember the name of the prison off the top of my head.
Yeah, welcome to the feds, man. I was in 4 different federal institutions on an 8-year bump back in the 90s. I get it. They bounce you around like crazy. It's just pretty. Yeah, so that's what's happening to your brother.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm sorry.
No. I was just saying. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. This is interesting to me. Fascinating, because it's truthful. That's the system that we're stuck in. Any of us that have been involved in organized crime, you got a bullseye on you. And let me tell you, brother, they know that maybe or maybe not you're guilty on them when they get you. But if they see a way to get you, they're going to get you. And I'm not disrespecting law enforcement either. I have nothing but respect for them. As you know, I spent 17 years as a DOJ contractor, operational in a lot of foreign countries, going after some very bad people. And prior to that, I had 15 years in the cartel world. I was recruited not because I was a rat. I was recruited because I wasn't a rat. And, they can't take people to that level and invest that much in them if they can't trust them. Some guy that'll go in and tell on all the good boys and girls in his neighborhood and his best friends and his whole family. How the hell are you going to work with somebody like that? You're going to be out there in the field putting your ass on the line right beside that contractor. And you got to know that he's rock solid. That's the one thing in the 17 years that I operated as a contractor kept me alive. Even when I was kidnapped once in Sinaloa, when I was captured once in El Salvador, when I went through the shit I went through, I got out of those situations alive because agency people got involved and said, yeah, we're going to pull him, man. We need this guy. He's part of our crew. He's part of what we do. And they put their life on the line for you. I actually had, I had an agent in U.S. Customs literally put his body over mine because they were concerned about a sniper shot taking me down on a case one time. But you know what? That stuff, Nick, isn't given to us. It's earned. And the most important thing is earning that kind of stuff. And they used to introduce me to rats that I could infiltrate into certain organizations. Because I wasn't a rat, I was a contractor. There's a world of difference in those two titles. I wasn't operating as some CI that's out there trying to cut down years on his sentence or none of the above. I don't have no respect for that. I was recruited, as I said, because I did keep it solid. I did do it right. But, that world is so fascinating to me, your part in what you're sharing today, because, Nick, I've known other men who were in federal prison with me that were innocent of their convictions. But the same old story. They were dirty in the organizations they were with. The feds knew that they were dirty. This is a way that they could slice the pie and get them out of the picture for a number of years or whatever. And I did know people in there under that. I was guilty of my charges. I take that heat. That's not a problem. I did my time. But those that I can remember real well, one guy comes to mind that I'm thinking about right now. He was involved in an armed robbery caper, and he wasn't involved at all. He was a side seat next to the driver in the truck. The driver was dirty. This guy wasn't, and he had to get slapped with 15 years on it. Lost his marriage, lost his home, lost everything, and all he do is walk those halls in the daytime and just weep because his life was over. But they were just sure. They made him complicit on a crime he had no idea whatsoever, Nick, that was going down that day when that truck got taken out. And yeah, so what you're saying and what you're sharing with people is reality. And you're a writer. You write about this stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, like I said, back then when after I read The Outsiders, I kind of inspired me to start writing, and I wrote a bunch of stuff that was like nothing serious, back then. I was too young. But as I got older, of course, as you get older, your writing improves. And I got involved with, I started my first book, Destinies, which is a fiction book. It's a mob story. And I wrote that one a couple of years ago. Don't remember the exact year, because I wrote 5 books already. And the first one was, like I said, a fiction book about a mob story, mob story / love story kind of a thing. That was my first one. My second one was called Prison Rules. Ironically, we're talking about that. Which I did with, I co-authored that book with the ex bodyguard of John Gotti Jr., John Elite.
Wow.
I did it with him. John was a pretty powerful guy with the Gambino family. He was the bodyguard for John Gotti Jr., who was nowhere near a tough guy like John Eli was. And John Eli was not Italian; he's Albanian, but he was one of the toughest guys I've ever met. So that was my second book, and that book was more like a John. It was John's voice. It was about getting from the time that you get arrested, from the time that you hopefully get out. It's like a raw book that gives you step by step of what it would be like if you got pinched.
Nick, I'm glad that you wrote about that stuff. I really am. If anybody in this audience understands the history behind John Gotti Jr., talk about a rock solid guy that totally got screwed, man. Unbelievable what the system did to that man. I tell you, it's heartbreaking. So it's very important, Nick, that this history is revealed, because the only way history repeats itself is when it's kept in silence. So whether you're writing them in a fictional way or not, as you know, I've got 12 books published myself. Mm-hmm. I write action adventure novels about the cartel wars and stuff, and they're fictionalized because I'm writing them for entertainment. But nonetheless, they're factual and information, because the executions I've witnessed and seen, tortures that I've seen, the type of trafficking methods that are used, all of that kind of stuff comes into play as we write. Same as you. You're writing a fictionalized book, but you're writing with factual information. And that information is important. Nick, I don't know if I told you or not, but my father was one of the 2 MPs that was at the 2 doors inside the Nuremberg trials. And when you ever look at the old film reel footage, my father was the MP on the right side. And it always bothered John and I that Dad never took notes, never wrote the history down. It's gone now. It's gone forever. Yeah. So my hat's off to you, brother. I'm glad that you're writing those. And how can my audience find your books? How do they go about getting one of your books, Nick?
Well, I mean, they're all 5 of them are on Amazon, and I think probably all the other book platforms. The first one was, like I said, Destinies. The second one was called Prison Rules with John A. Light. The third one was called Mafia Ties, the Greek Syndicates, which is about the Greek mob on an international level. I covered it. I covered the Greeks, and I mean, it's information that nobody knows about. Nobody's really ever written about it.
My point, Nick, exactly. You're documenting history, even if you're fictionalizing it. You're telling the story about the Greek organized crime syndicates.
Oh, mine's definitely not fiction. It's all factual. It's research I did.
I thought they were fictionalized. Okay.
No. Prison Rules is not fictional. That's nonfiction. Mafia Ties is nonfiction. Those two are my first book, my fourth book, and fifth book. Those are fiction, yes. But the only nonfiction ones are Prison Rules I did with John Alite, and Mafia Ties, the Greek syndicates. Those are the only two that are nonfiction that are based on factual events, things that really happen.
There it is on my screen, right there. There it is, right on my screen. Perfect, so they can see where to get it.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, and if anybody's interested in getting signed copies, they can just, hit me up you can find me on Facebook, you can email me, whatever works best.
Yeah, we'll have to trade a couple signed copies with each other, man. I'll do the same for you, brother.
Yeah, that'd be great, for sure.
Well, see, I went to an attorney before I started writing. Right after I was putting together my autobiography of my life story, I sat down with a law firm and they said, listen, fictionalize part of it. That way only you know the truth of all of it. And it's a protection device because a lot of the stuff when I was operating with the Sinaloa drug cartel could have put a lot of people away for life. I'm not interested in doing that. I was interested in documenting the history, kind of telling a story about life in these in the cartel world and the cartel way of life back in the 70s and 80s. And cartels weren't even formed until the late 70s. They were organized crime syndicated families down there. The cartels were put together by people that I knew and grew up with around in my childhood, like El Chapo. I knew Chapo and I when we were in our 20s smuggling pot together. I mean, I knew Rafael Cara Quintero when he invented the Sensimilla and went down. I remember when he took out Kiki Camarena, the DEA agent, and sadly captured and tortured him to death. I went down, I was bringing loads north at that time out of Jalisco State and backed away from the business for almost a year as a result, because I knew the whole world was going to come down on them because of that. But some of the stuff I write about in my books, but I purposely fictionalize a lot of it and turned them into action adventure novels so I could tell the story without fearing prosecution about knowledge that I had that was real. So I guess each author, each writer to his own, how he tells his story. But like in my autobiography, 90% of it's absolute factual, and throughout the book there's photographs and documents and things to this nature. But some of the stuff that I discuss in that book could put people away forever. It's evidentiary. It's a confession of sorts. So like I said, I went to a law firm and got briefed on how to write the stories so I could protect and prevent that type of activity. And even though that happened in another country 40 plus years ago, it doesn't really matter. If there's evidence put there, someone can follow it, pursue it, and somebody can get hurt as a result of it. So you and I, we walk a tightrope in the world that we are knowledgeable in and knowledgeable of. But part of that, the 15 years I spent as a smuggler and a high-level narco-trafficante in the United States for the cartels, is also backed up and supported by the 17 years when I was drafted into becoming a contractor for the DOJ and operational in several foreign countries down there. 17 years I did that and survived it. And when I got out of it in 2018, I got hit in 2020, left for dead, should have been dead, stabbed multiple times, lost consciousness, and never thought I'd wake up again. And after that happened to me, it just goes to show that you make an enemy in that world and in that industry, it can be decades later and they're still going to find you. Is that not true in your world?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, when I did the book on the Greek mob, I had a guy that I wrote about in the book.
Yeah.
From Canada. His name was John Venizelos. He was with the Bonanno family.
The Bonanno,
and so he reached out. Somebody reached out to me, family member of his, and they said they were asking me, where did I get this information about John?
Yeah.
And I said, it's none of your business. I said, what do you want? I kind of like indirectly. I kind of indirectly told him to go screw up.
Yeah.
But I knew that was gonna possibly happen. Somebody was gonna reach out to me eventually.
It gets real, Nick. It gets real. But good for you for having the balls to put it down there and put the story out there. Because how do these things stay in history if they're not documented and remembered? And that was my motivation behind writing. I realized I had an extraordinary life early on in my life, but I had no idea. years later that El Chapo would become the boss of the Sinaloa Cartel, and Angel Gallardo, Felix Gallardo, became the godfather of all godfathers in Mexico. And Christ, I knew these guys when they were coming up, and they weren't like that, but they were affiliated with people that were already there and into that. But this was back when it was syndicated down there. It wasn't cartels yet. Cartels really didn't form until the late 1970s, and then in the early 80s. And by that time, they were really taking hold in the country of Mexico. And you're talking about organizations that have thousands of members, not a couple hundred, like the five families that controlled the boroughs in New York back in the 40s, 50s, 60s. About 70s is when that started getting hammered. The Valachi papers, the first guy to ever roll. When was that? That was late 50s, early 60s when Joe Valachi.
Yeah, 60s.
Yeah.
60s.
Yeah. And that was the beginning of it all crumbling down, brother. It was.
Well, the mob's been falling apart since '90. It's just around Gotti, when Gotti went away, and that opened a can of worms. And I mean, they're still around. I'm not going to say they're down, but they ain't out completely.
But it's not like it was, brother. Not at all.
Oh no, not even close.
Yeah, I was in federal prison with a lot of heavies, and these guys that were connected to the families there in the state of New York. A couple of them I became very close to. As I said, I was a hospice counselor trained as a fellow convict, trained to help my fellow convicts go through the dying process. And I took 24 of them through it. And during that time, I took a couple of guys that were bosses in some of those families. And I can remember coming out to the yard and they going, "What can we do this favor for you?" This kind of neat talk. And you know how they are, man. I mean, it's just unbelievable when you're from the West Coast and you never heard the lingo of an Italian mafia guy talking to you and showing grateful. And Mr. Gambino actually gave me a home phone number there on Long Island and said, if you ever go out to New York, just make a call to the house and we'll come and pick you up and take you out. And thank you for taking care of our brother, through his dying stages. And yeah, it's pretty fascinating. I'd never been around it until that time of my life, the Italian syndicate people. But
right. Well, like you, I never was around the
cartels.
I was never around any kind of Mexican gangsters or any of that kind of type. It was all Italians and Greeks that I grew up around, But that comes with the area I was growing up. I was in Rockaway, which is right next to Howard Beach, is right near Gotti territory. And then Astoria, at the time that I was growing up, in the late 70s, 80s, was Spiro's area. So that's who I bumped into there. Greek, Albanians, not many other type of crew guys of other races that I've ever came across, aside from one or two Jewish guys that I knew were connected. But that's about it, really. So I'm sorry?
No, I was going to say, let me ask you this, Nick. Are you still writing? Are you going to continue put more books out? Or
I'm going to make you laugh.
Okay.
Right now, recently, after my fifth book, which is called Flowers Are Not Forever, which is more like a crime thriller than any kind of, it has some kind of mob element, really, but not really. I try to make it a little different. But it is a crime thriller. So my sixth book that I'm putting together, currently almost done actually, was kind of inspired by my girlfriend, believe it or not. And because I used to, we met about 8 months ago, and I was writing poems to her every day. And they were love poems.
Nice.
She stopped and told me one day, she said, "Listen, you wrote about 50 poems here for me. Why don't you put together and make it a poem book? Stop writing about these criminals."
Hey, we are who we are. It is what it is, brother.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that, because I kind of told her that, I said, "Listen, most authors, like John Grisham, like Steven Spielberg, Sidney Sheldon, all these authors, if you look at their books, they're all very similar."
Yeah, they are.
I was explaining to her as an author, you write what you know. I said, I can't write a romance novel. I want to know what it's like. So, I can't write a book about flowers. You got to write what you know about it, what you've experienced. You can't divert because it's not going to sound right, But then she kind of convinced me, but you're good at this. You write very good poems. I said, okay. So that's what I'm going to be putting out pretty soon.
I think it's great. I think it's amazing. And I think you're right. When you're trying to explain to your girlfriend, honey, we write about what we know about. But to sit there and put together those poems like you've done, and obviously they must be very, very good, or she would not have responded in kind saying, hey, these warrant publication. Now you got me curious. Now I want to see that on your site. I've got your Mafia Ties on Amazon address right here. Make sure that it ends up in that place, brother.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm soon enough. Once I get the cover finished, all the poems are written.
Oh, that's perfect.
Once the cover is done, and then I'm going to try to put some images for every single poem, an image, which I do have. I just got to put it all together and put it out. People will be a little stunned. What's this guy writing about? He writes about wise guys. Why is he writing about love poems?
Talk about flexibility. That's amazing. Well, listen, we're getting ready to wrap up here. So as we close out the show, is there any message at all that you have to our audience tonight?
Well, if anybody who's listening who's a writer, just keep on plugging away. Never give up. Just keep doing it. Anybody's interested in any of my books, you can hit me up at nickchristopher50@gmail.com if you'd like to get signed copies. Otherwise, they're on Amazon. You can find them. Just, easy to find. Just Google my name, and you'll find it. Shouldn't be that difficult.
That's perfect. Hey, Nick, I want to thank you for coming back on and seeing me on the show. I've thought about you often, and I think you're just an amazing person, and I truly mean that from the heart. You did it right, man. You had a story to tell, and you got that story into book writing form, and that is so critical because it is history, Nick. And people will never know 20, 30, 40 years from now about the years and the lifestyle that you and I came up in. But we documented it. We wrote about it. So all the best to you. God bless you. God keep you. Happy to hear about your 8-month girlfriend relationship. I hope it goes on through eternity, buddy.
Me too.
You take care of yourself. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you, Hal.
Okay, folks. Well, that wraps up another episode today. And I'd like to take this moment to thank each and every one of you for taking your time to catch our show. Now, if you like these shows, I would ask that you would please hit like, share, and subscribe. It's so important to us that we get these messages out, and we understand that these are graphic, almost toxic interviews. But, this is the kind of impact that we feel is needed in order to make sure that people understand the significance of the problems that we are confronted within our own country and around the globe. So I'm going to say at this time that I love you all. God bless you all. Hasta luego, y vaya con Dios, and go Victors.